Alrighty. While we're working on getting the final touches on this, I'd like to welcome those who might be wandering by to this first live stream from Westeros.org, which will be my first impressions and quick review analysis of the very first episode of the final season of A Game of Thrones, and it's called Winterfell. It is very much, as you'll see at some points if you've seen the episode already, there are some callbacks to the very first episode, and I expect that will be happening throughout this final season, that they'll be tying things together, which is always a nice touch. So we're going to be doing things a little differently this year, and you'll probably be hearing Elio typing in the background occasionally. I'm not sure it'll pick that up. It's, we're trying this the first time, and there's going to be some teething problems as we work it out. But we felt that because it is the final season, and because I have a ton of things to do tomorrow, I've ended up with 5 different interviews. I won't really have time to do the video properly tomorrow, so I figured, okay, I'll get up in the middle of the night and get dressed and ready, and not just to watch the episode, but then to also give impressions on it right away. We're probably not going to be doing much written content this year. There's not that much to write, really. We might try and get together some comments on what we think might appear in the books, and what probably will be completely different. But it's getting very difficult now that we're so close to the end, and we know that the end itself are going to be pretty close. But anyway, the episode itself, Winterfell. Well, a lot of the preview reviews from the premiere have been very positive. I feel like that's very much part of the whole hype for this season. Everyone's saying that everything's bigger and better than before, as they've been doing every year. Even, leaving aside my usual grudges, I don't think it's a particularly spectacular episode. Saying that it's the best opener ever and things, I don't know about that. It's catching everyone up. It's a typical opener. It's showing you where what happened last, making sure you get the information about who's where, positioning things. They make a big deal about the tensions that we're going to be having between basically Jon and Dany, and in particular Sansa, or really anyone in the north, but she kind of represents them. So they're obviously playing that up as a big part of this season, which and you can see the other parts in this episode as well. They establish that Cersei's happy about the fact that the wall has fallen and the army of the dead is coming down in the north, and she's getting the Golden Company on her side. We just get glimpses, although they're fairly gruesome, effective glimpses of what the Night King and his army have been up to lately. But obviously we also get Bran recapping and telling Dany that the Night King now has her dragon, and the wall has fallen. So we've got all the pieces positioned. We've got our camp in the north. We've got the dead. We've got Cersei, and then a little on the side we've got the remaining Greyjoys. I'm not really sure what will come of the Yara storyline, but Theon seems set to join everyone in the north, at least. But I thought we would start in, more specifically in King's Landing. And like I said, Cersei's happy as Cersei can ever be. You know what I think about Lena Headey's Cersei, and she still looks constipated. So she's very happy that things are going to hell in the north. And then we get her introduction to the big new player on her side, which is the Golden Company, led by Harry Strickland. So Euron brings him into the Red Keep, to the throne room, which is incredibly deserted. And I understand that they want to make this feel, like Cersei is this crazy queen who is, ruling all on her lonesome, and everyone's frightened of her. But I thought she had left someone alive in King's Landing and at the court. It really looks like it's kind of her and Qyburn and the Mountain, who's not really alive. It seems like King's Landing has been completely deserted. But anyway, now she's got the Golden Company, although she did not get her elephants, and she's very sad about that. And then Euron manages to persuade her that it's time to collect on what he has been promised. And they head off for some time together. Later on we catch up with him and see that he is being arrogant enough that she's calling him the most arrogant man she's ever met, which is quite an achievement considering that she's met Jaime a few times. And they don't seem to have a particularly good relationship. Obviously, Cersei doesn't exactly seem to be enjoying the affair, but there it is. Let me see, what else did we have there? Oh yes, we had, of course, the return of a bit of sexposition with Bronn. We catch up with Bronn in a brothel with 3 prostitutes. All they want to do is talk about dragons, however. I kind of wonder if this is supposed to be a little bit of a callback to Viserys and Dorea in the first season, where talking about dragons was perceived as much more enticing than Bronn seems to feel that it is. And then he gets interrupted by Qyburn, who comes in and decides, Cersei has apparently decided, and we have a dog who's decided that he wants to join in on the fun, but no, he doesn't get to be on the live stream. But anyway, where was I? Right, Cersei has decided, it seems, that she wants to get rid of both her treasonous brothers. So she's apparently paying Bronn to be ready to shoot them both with the crossbow, I guess the crossbow that Tyrion used to murder Tywin, and that Joffrey was target practicing on Ross with, and so on. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to believe here, or well, I think it's supposed to be up in the air, really, whether is Bronn buying this? He's being promised chests of gold. He said no to the idea of murdering Dany right away, because obviously he decided that he did not want any more close encounters with dragons. But even if he does accept the money and the crossbow, is he just gonna change his mind depending on what it looks like when the time comes to it and he meets up with Jaime and or Tyrion again? There's always in the books, Bronn is very much somebody who's going to do what is best for him, I think, and he has no qualms about taking, the money and being a mercenary for anyone. In the TV show, I don't know if they've got the guts to go with that, to be honest. And let's see what else. Yes, right, I've already mentioned briefly that we see a bit of Yara and we see a bit of Theon. So Theon sneaks onto the ship to rescue Yara. She's on Euron's ship. For some reason he's decided to keep her alive because he's bored. And he's only got mutes around him. Whose fault is that? And she promptly headbutts him, and then we see them talking again afterwards, and she wants to take back the Iron Islands and have it as a safe haven if Dany has to abandon the north, whereas Theon wants to go and fight in the north, and she lets him. So those two siblings have caught up, and of course in the north we have all the Stark siblings catching up. It starts with an opening scene that is very much, like I said, reminiscent of the first episode, with Robert's arrival to Winterfell and the Starks waiting for him This time, of course, one of the Starks is riding in with the queen in this case. Dany is looking on her most arrogant Targaryen behavior when she rides in, smiling about the fact that her dragons are flying over and scaring people. I'm not sure that's a good attitude to take, but alright, Targaryens are pretty arrogant. And then once things get started here, it becomes obvious that people are very unhappy with Jon's decision to abandon the crown and go with Dany. Sansa in particular is very pissy in the council that they have. She complains about having to feed an additional army. Okay, well, you did agree that Jon would be going off and getting allies. So hopefully you had calculated with feeding those allies, no matter who they would be. But I suppose not calculating with feeding dragons is one thing, but she mentions the Unsullied and the Dothraki as well. And presumably any allies, unless they were the dead, would actually need to eat something. And then, of course, she is very exasperated with the whole eye-rolling about, what do the dragons even eat anyway? And Dany decides to bait her and arrogantly tell her whatever they want, which means that they're very badly behaved dragons still. I thought she had some control over, what they eat and when they eat, but she decides to be a little pissy about it in return. So yes, this is going to be a big part, I think, of this season. It doesn't make Sansa in particular look very endearing, and in the Jon Arya scene, Arya decides that she's on Sansa's side now, and apparently Sansa is the smartest person that Arya has ever met. I like Sansa in the books. I like some of Sansa on the show, but Arya is being a bit naive and overestimating of Sansa's abilities if she is the smartest person Arya's ever met. Alternatively, Arya hasn't met that many smart people, which, yeah, that might also be true. So we have a meeting in the Godswood again, calling back a bit to Ned and Catelyn in the Godswood. So all the Starks are, all the remaining Starks are getting together and airing out some grievances, and Jon is feeling a bit put upon. Of course, Jon gets cheered up as he gets to go and fly on a dragon, which initially looks like a very uncomfortable proposal. Well, not just initially, really. He has to cling on for dear life, and we've commented on this before. Why didn't they give them saddles? Why hasn't Tyrion by now told Dany, hey, a saddle is an awesome way to ride a dragon. Look, you could even have these chains that hold you onto the dragon, and you don't have to risk falling off when the dragon decides to have a bit of fun in flight. Rhaegal clearly is taking, Jon for a bit of a spin, and but then apparently Jon just learns how to steer. You grab onto it and you just turn like that, like there's a wheel somewhere. So that worked nice, and then we get some sexy times in front of the dragons, with the dragons staring very intently. That would make people a bit uncomfortable, I think. And speaking of dragons, we also have dragon glass in this episode. We have a massive dragon glass axe having been forged for the Hound. And I'm going to get back to this forging of the dragon glass later. But I do wonder what this axe is going to be used for. It seems like it's going to kill something big. Maybe an undead dragon. There is the section from the history of the Dance of the Dragons, where Syrax, the Queen's dragon, is killed by an axe. There could be something like this sort of being referenced if, one presumes that they have cracked open Fire and Blood or the World of Ice and Fire. On the other hand, it could also be used to kill something other large and dead, like the mountain. Because what we see is that Arya is also ordering up a special weapon from Gendry. She seems to want a dragon glass spear. Is that going to be the second death for Viserion by spear, for example? Or is it going to be for the Night King? She's decided to go for a nice big target. Clearly these two weapons, I think, are going to play a significant role at some point during the season. They're sort of like Chekhov's axe and Chekhov's spear, basically. The other big element in the north as we get towards the end is a set of scenes where first Sam meets Jorah and Dany, and Dany thanks him for curing Jorah when it was impossible, and Sam of course says no, it's just that he didn't want to do it, and yes, everyone knew how to cure grayscale all the time. I've already rolled my eyes about that before, but I got something new to roll my eyes about here in relation to this, because basically Sam finds out that Dany toasted his father and his brother, and he gets very upset, at least about his brother. And then when he leaves, he gets ambushed by Bran, or he runs into Bran anyway, and Bran tells him that it's time to tell Jon. And he puts it on Sam, since they're such good buddies. So Sam seeks out Jon in the crypts, and he starts by telling him that Dany toasted his relatives, and is shocked when he realizes that she didn't tell Jon. I'm not sure that Dany's been making a list for Jon of all the people that she's killed since she got to Westeros. And I'm also not sure that Jon has actually told Dany about Sam. Yes, they've been a little while in Winterfell now, but probably just a day or two. Although you never know with time on this show, really. But the idea that they've had a sit down, oh yeah, and my buddy Sam over there, you haven't accidentally killed any of his family, have you? The idea that this would have come up is ridiculous. So maybe Jon is just looking awkward and bad because Sam thinks that he's told his new girlfriend about him, and Jon has in fact forgotten all about it between flying on dragons and sexy time up in the mountains. So yes, that's going to be one of my eye rolls at the end. And then we have a very creepy finish. It's not the finish because the finish is Jaime approaching Winterfell, but we have them at Last Hearth, where the stragglers from the wall, the survivors, we find Tormund, Beric, and Ed, and some men with him. They've discovered that when Ned Umber went back to Last Hearth, so some time has clearly passed, because he went back in one of the first scenes to get his men and got overrun by the dead and has been left as a message by the Night King. Very grisly and a very loud white, screeching and all that. So that's sort of what happens. As I said, the most spectacular thing, the dragon flight. Although the CGI for the dragons when they were on the ground, their heads looked kind of weird. It didn't look as realistic as it has been in the past. They looked a bit too rubbery, I think. But the flying, it's always gorgeous. Or when the dragons came in over Winterfell, and everyone looks up to see them, super impressive. The look at Winterfell as a war camp in progress with all the people. It's getting the sense that everyone's gathering here. It's the last push, or the last place where they're going to defend themselves. We'll see if winter indeed falls at Winterfell, I suppose. There's that double, triple meaning, whatever, in the name that George always wanted. So it does a good job of introducing what's going to be happening, where everyone is, but particularly spectacular. No, not, it's really just special effects that I find spectacular at this stage. But even so, it is a first episode, and it is a typical first episode, so it's nothing to get overexcited about, even if it's the first of just 6. Now, eye rolls and such, well, there are going to be fewer of them because I'm doing this live stream thing. I've had to take down notes, very quickly as I was watching. Haven't had any time to go back and rewatch and see more things that drive me absolutely batty, but you'll get the big ones. And I already mentioned that I was going to get back to the dragon glass. Melting dragon glass to make weapons. When they brought in all this dragon glass to make weapons, I kind of thought that they were going to, stick shards of it onto things and, incorporate them somehow into weapons. But no, they've decided that the idea is to melt it and reform it and be able to make any sort of weapon with it. This is pretty much impossible. Unless dragon glass is supposed to be vastly different from obsidian, which it's not really supposed to be other than having magical properties in Westeros. And unless Gendry is practicing some magic to do something, we actually found a video on YouTube with somebody who tried this, and I had a quick look at how it would work to melt dragon glass or melt obsidian to make a weapon. It is pretty hopeless. It just changes completely, it changes its appearance, it goes incredibly brittle. You can't work with it like that. So yes, just because they wanted a giant axe and a spear, they decided to be stupid about it. And that definitely deserves a big eye roll. And back to dragons. Riding dragons like that. Again, a big eye roll. When Jon asks Dany, how do you ride I don't know how to ride a dragon. No, nobody does. Let's see, what is this? I had to write that down even. What do I hold on to? Whatever you can. Yes, that's a fine science. And then we see that he's, basically holding on, I think, by one hand at one point when Rhaegal takes off a little quickly. It's completely unrealistic that they would be able to hang on. And it doesn't even look very good to have them pressed down and holding on for dear life. It would have been able to look much more impressive if they had saddles. They could sit upright. Here you just look like, help me, the dragon's flying away. Yeah, it's just plain stupid, and they've had plenty of time to do something about it, and they've just opted not to. Finally, the Sam complaining to Jon that Dany didn't tell him, told Jon that she toasted his family. Sam, you clearly think you're a lot more important than you are, and don't look so hurt about it. Of course, Jon in this scene is looking generally shocked, and it's a little hard to gauge how he's feeling about being told the big secret. Yes, I kind of forgot about that part as well. Once Sam has told him about Dany toasting his relatives, my eyes were still rolling, and then they got into discussing the fact that Jon is in fact the heir to the Iron Throne, which of course he doesn't want to believe at first, but it doesn't take that much persuading, and then he's very dubious, and when Sam tells him that he's in fact the heir, oh, but that's treason, but he's kind of looking a little like, would Dany really give up her crown for me if it was reversed? So this, I do think that it's going to be a significant part of the season as well. Somehow there's going to be the seeds of, there's going to be a schism between Dany and Jon about something. I guess he's going to think that she's being too brutal about something or other, and maybe people pushing him is going to get him to say that, well, maybe I should be the heir or something. Are we going to get another Dance of the Dragons with dragons fighting each other? Well, it certainly doesn't seem like, Euron has a horn or any way of stealing one of the dragons. So we're going to have Viserion on one side, but are we also going to have a split between Rhaegal and Drogon? They're going to tease it at least. I don't know how far they're going to go with it. Probably won't come to anything in the end, but they're definitely going to tease it. So, well, that's me rambling my way through a first live stream of this, and I'm not a very good live streamer yet because I haven't looked at comments at all, if there have been any. I'm glancing over on the screen and I'm seeing that there are indeed some comments. So I am going to get Elliot to pass me his iPad and I'm going to take a quick look. Let's see here if we have any questions that we can tackle. Well, no, they didn't lose the idea that only Targaryens ride dragons, just to see one comment here, because, well, Jon is definitely at least half Targaryen. And where are those comments again? Let's see. Are the nearest on top or bottom, darling? They are on the bottom. Okay. I'm getting sign language here from LU. Who have had to wake up in the middle of the night to help me with the technology of this, even though he was not, as usual, watching. So, fanfic of Thrones, yes, it is very much fanfic of Thrones. At least in the broad strokes of, there's going to be similar things. I mean, George has said it several times. The endings are going to march towards a common point. But we're still at a stage where the setup of the end game still feels like it is very different. The situation in King's Landing is very different. There is no Night King, there is no one leader. It's not going to be this this type of organized approach, I think, from the dead. Are we going to have Winterfell as a staging point in the future? Yes, I do think so. As I said, I think the name Winterfell, there's a reason that there's going to be some significant battles around there. So I think that matches up. Jon and Dany hooking up, I do think so. And that is going to lead to some discord among his allies, whatever they are at that point. The amount of distrust that they're playing up from Sansa and Arya, and that pretty much almost deserved another eye roll, I think, Sansa's behavior. Yes, I think I'll toss one in for that, because she has every right to be suspicious and doubtful of a Targaryen, but at the same time, she can't, pretend that she didn't expect a bunch of people if Jon was supposed to bring allies. And the idea that he would be able to bring allies without any compromise, they should have expected that. So I think they're doing a bit too much of it. I think they should have played Sansa as a bit more mature here, a bit less as a petulant teenage girl. I do think that Jaime is going to die in this season. I don't know that he's going to die soon. Maybe not the last episode, penultimate episode perhaps for Jaime and Cersei. It sort of depends on what other conflicts are left to deal with. Um, and yes, the Sansa, it's a good point. I suppose that is because Sansa is the smartest person that Arya has ever met, that she's the only one who thinks that Cersei will betray them. But she's certainly being very pissy with Tyrion as well. Not really sure why, to be honest. He did treat her pretty decently, and then, of course, he's a little upset, sort of pointing out that, you know, you kind of left me with all the trouble and disappeared right after Joffrey's murder. But the very cynical attitude. I mean, yes, she's right not to trust Cersei, but apparently, she has now dropped Tyrion from being the smartest man she knows. So I'm not sure who that is. Frankly, I don't think she would say that she knows any smart men. If she's asked about who the smartest person she knows is, she might say herself. She might say Arya. They're very buddy this season. What would I rate the episode? Gosh, leaving aside the general grudges, I suppose it might be somewhere between a 6 and a 7. It seems okay in the terms of the pacing and the setup. There are some of the usual issues with time and logistics, some pointless bits and pieces, characters behaving stupidly. I do think that is probably the biggest problem beyond my eye rolls. It's the characters, the way that they're setting up the tensions, and some of it, all of it, a lot of it, you just want to shake people and say, hang on, face the facts. What Jon is saying, that you need the dragons and you need Dany to defeat the army of the dead, is absolutely true. But even Sam seems like, oh my God, it's absolutely terrible. She toasted my family because they refused to bend a knee. So now she's going to toast everybody. There's a lot of personal grudges, and you kind of think that at this point, with the stakes, that they'd get over those a bit. Jon appears eminently reasonable throughout the episode, other than the crazy fact of clambering onto a dragon and not questioning what to hold, or questioning what to hold on to, but then doing it anyway. That wasn't very clever, but other than that, Jon is one of the saner people in this episode. Hopefully it will stay that way even after he's been told that he's in fact not Jon but Aegon, which I don't think is true, but as in, I know he's Rhaegar and Lyanna's son, but I don't think he's A, legitimate, and B, named Aegon. But I guess we'll see at some point. What else do we have here? Do I think that Dany will learn the truth from Bran? It's an interesting thing. We've only seen that brief conversation there where he tells her that the Night King has Viserion and the wall has fallen. Will we see more interactions between them? It would be interesting, but I suspect that they will leave it up to Jon to explain. And that probably won't go over terribly well initially. And yes, Cersei wanting Jaime dead as well. Yes, she sure changed her mind quickly, but she seems, in a very bad mood. It's not like she's been particularly happy much through the seasons, but other than when she thinks she's gonna get elephants, when she's smiling when she asks about them, and then she gets sad when she doesn't get her elephants. So deciding that she wants Jaime dead right away like that. Yeah, not very gracious of her. He has stuck by her a very long time, extra long time if you ask Book Jaime, too long. So the fact that she would just flip like that and say, no, time to murder him, not very nice of her. And then, you know, maybe she's warming up to Euron after all. I don't think so, but it is a bit odd. Obviously, I think they want to set up that makes me think that Bronn isn't going to go for it. After all, he's going to pretend to go for it, but ultimately he's not going to do it. But they wanted a reason to set something like that up. I'm not strictly sure what's going to come of it. Like, I don't think he's going to kill Cersei, for example. Maybe Bronn is going to kill Qyburn. That seemed like they could possibly be setting that up, for example. Building Sansa up to be slain in a betrayal. Gosh, I haven't really thought about Sansa dying. I don't think so. I think it's more likely that... you know, I have a hard time seeing Sansa or Arya dying if they're sticking to the intended fates for them that George plans for them in the books. I mean, Arya, because Paris has threatened to kill him if he kills Arya. So I think Arya is pretty safe, although maybe he'll sneak it in at the very end. Sansa... I've kind of started leaning more and more to the idea that Sansa might be actually left as Lady of Winterfell at the end. So I think their odds of surviving in the books are pretty good. So I don't really see them dying on the show either. But I could certainly see there being some kind of... I mean, Sansa and Dany, that thing is going to obviously fester a bit. And it could get dicey. Is Sansa going to, for example, be plotting to get rid of Dany? If that's looking like it's necessary. Maybe so. Let me see where else we are and what time it is. It is 4:50. Yes. 10 more minutes is what my producer is telling me, because after this I will actually have to sleep for 2 hours, yay, and I have to get up and do an interview. We have 5 interviews, or I have 5 interviews booked tomorrow. It's gotten a little crazy for this final season. The hype is indeed real. So I'm going to be a very, very tired girl this Monday, which is partially why I wanted to get as much of this done during the night as possible. And, you know, we will try and answer some comments on the stream later as well in writing, because it's difficult to catch up with everything right now. An epilogue scene at the end of the series. Well, I sincerely hope so, because I do feel that, well, we've speculated, Elio and I, that the epilogue scene of the books will be Bran watching events unfold from beneath the hill beyond the wall, fused with that tree. Because no, I don't think he's actually leaving it in the books. So I hope they will, if that is the correct speculation, I hope they do some sort of epilogue. Obviously, it could be Bran anyway. I'm not sure how they would work it, but maybe having him watching from some place and sort of seeing all of Westeros and seeing the aftermath of things and how things are sorting out in the future. So yes, I do think and hope that there will be an epilogue. It seems like a nice way to finish something like this up. Can we leave the chat going so we can annoy each other after the stream ends? I suppose, I think you can. And as I said, we might try and come in and answer some comments later on the video at least, because I think it'll be published as a regular video on YouTube as well. I said this is the first time we're trying this. We are streamer novices. Is Arya going to be Lady Stoneheart? No, I don't think she's taking that role at all. George again reiterated in a recent interview that Lady Stoneheart will be very important in the Winds of Winter. They're obviously past that point to some degree, so I don't know if there's a necessity for that kind of role. I mean, the vengeance taking, but she's already done it with the phrase. I think that's the most, basically. Is Elio watching? No, Elio is still not watching. He is blissfully unaware. Or, well, you know, he kind of gets the sense, obviously, he's hearing me talk right now, so he knows what's going to happen. You know, he doesn't care about the spoilers, but he doesn't want to suffer through watching things, even if, you know, there are no, there's no Dorne to be sad about any longer. It's completely disappeared, thankfully. But there's still, you know, lots of stupidities. Let me see. Will you be able to see or read the interviews? Well, most of them are going to be on Swedish radio, I'm afraid. There's going to be one on Swedish TV as well. So unless you can access that, and unless you understand Swedish, no. We have done a number of written interviews in the week leading up to it, and I think Elio has been linking most of them on the Twitter, and there are some that are going to be coming out, I think, this week as well. So we will be commenting on things in various mediums, but a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now is going to be Swedish. And I think for that I should start wrapping this up. And I want to thank everyone that showed up to listen to me ramble for this long. I'll try to be a little more organized next week. But, you know, it is the nature of a live stream and watching things and just commenting right afterwards. Now I'll know a little bit more what to expect, at least. And I'll try and see if I can keep up with comments from earlier on next time, maybe after I do a brief recap and then start getting into the nitty-gritty of what I thought. So that was the first episode, Winterfell. I don't know if we have the title yet for the second episode. They seem to be holding on to those. So that will be a mystery until next week, when you will see me on the Westeros Royal YouTube channel again. Thank you, everyone.